What's up, guys? I got a fun one for you today. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about Michigan deer hunting and how certain regulations should be pushed, whether it's APRs or moving to a one-buck state. But I thought it'd be cool to find somebody who's been successful and built a successful track record of harvesting mature bucks, because I'm not going to be holding my breath waiting for certain agencies to step in. I'd rather not have to get to that point. So I want to figure out what we can do as individuals to control our own destiny as deer hunters if, in fact, shooting better bucks is your goal. So I got Trevor here with me. We spent the day walking around, kind of looking at some of his properties and how they're laid out. And I want to kick this off by just talking about what are some of the things that you guys have been able to do to get to a point where you guys are consistently killing 4-year-old or older bucks out here in Michigan.
Yeah, so to start off, I don't think that it necessarily should be everyone's goal to consistently kill 4.5-year-old deer. I think that you should set realistic goals for yourself based on where you are in your hunting career. Maybe you're a new hunter. Maybe you don't have 60 days a year during the hunting season to hunt. And I think that your goals should reflect the amount of time, the budget that you have, and the area that you hunt in. That would be the first thing. You know, in certain parts of Michigan, I think that a realistic goal would be to pass 1.5-year-old bucks and try to shoot a nice 2.5-year-old deer. And that's actually where we started years ago. So I'm lucky that we get to hunt in a co-op in southern Michigan. We have a really good thing going with some neighbors. If I could boil down 3 things that really have made us successful over the years, it would be cooperation, discipline, and patience.
So you mentioned that you're part of a co-op, and that's led you to be really successful in getting some of these older age class bucks. What is a co-op? I've never heard that term before. Like, what is that, and how did it start, and how has that impacted your hunting?
So in the early 90s, a couple brothers that are our nearby neighbors actually were the first ones in our area to come up with the idea of starting a co-op and just passing young bucks in general. It really didn't catch on, and they'll tell you themselves that it really took a lot of time to build up and get the cooperation. They started with a couple of their closest neighbors, got 3 or 4 guys on board, but it really wasn't until about the mid-2000s, 12 to 15 years later, that it really started to catch on, and we started to see that growth of a really good buck was a 2.5-year-old, 105, 110-inch buck, to all of a sudden in the mid-2000s, now we were consistently seeing the 120 to 130-inch 3.5-year-old bucks. So that was really cool to see. And then from 2005 to 2015, things really caught on. We had a good group of core guys, and it was like exponential growth for that next 10 years. Started having co-op meetings where we would meet and have a speaker come in. So they would talk about things like aging deer on the hoof or scoring deer on the hoof. They would talk about habitat improvements and how could the guys within that co-op hold more deer. Really, one of the goals of a co-op is that you want your neighbors to be successful. You want your neighbors to have the best habitat that they possibly can so that they're holding more deer, and they want you to have the best habitat that you can so that you're holding more deer. And really, that's the idea, is that you work together holding more deer and you have more common goals.
So say I'm an absentee landowner. I own land in a certain place 3 hours away. I don't know any of the neighbors. At a certain point, you can only control what you yourself are doing to a certain extent. So say you don't know any of the neighbors, what would you say to the person that might not have cooperation of all their neighbors, or maybe they're not on board with the same goals that you have?
Yeah, so this has been really interesting to see. Even 30 years later, hunting in a co-op, there's still some neighbors that don't have the time to hunt like I'm blessed to, and may not have exactly the same goals. I guess the big thing for me is don't get discouraged if your goals don't align perfectly with your neighbors, because they don't have to. Maybe your goal is to pass 2.5-year-old deer and you want to shoot a mid-120s 3-year-old buck, and maybe your neighbor's not on board. Maybe they shoot everything they see, but don't get discouraged if they shoot a deer that you pass. They're not going to shoot every deer that you pass. One thing that I found myself in 2014, I killed my first 4.5-year-old deer, and it was really eye-opening to me that after that point, I decided I wasn't going to shoot 3.5-year-old deer anymore. And I didn't know if it'd be possible or not. I'm like, was this a complete fluke that I shot this 4-year-old? Or is it something we can actually do on a consistent basis? And once I made that commitment to passing 3.5-year-old deer, it was amazing how much I've realized that all along, I may be the one holding myself back. We've killed quite a few 4-year-old deer since that 2014 time frame, and almost every one of them we passed multiple times as 3-year-olds. So if we didn't have that discipline and that patience, we would have killed a lot of those deer as 120 to 135 inch 3-year-old deer. But all of a sudden we've raised the bar for ourselves, and we're seeing that you can grow 4.5-year-old deer, and a lot of what was holding us back was ourselves.
All right, so we've touched on the co-op and what that means and what to do if you don't have other people to work with or neighbors to work with necessarily. Now give me some examples from a discipline standpoint of maybe something that private landowners could do, as well as maybe permission land or public land hunters could do to either advance the buck herd, if you will, to that next level, or to advance their hunting to the next level.
Yeah, so the first thing, even without a co-op, I think that you can start setting goals for yourself. Raise the bar consistently for yourself. If you shot a couple...
You talked about leading by example on that, so it's not always getting the buy-in from everybody else. It's what are your goals, set that bar, and don't compromise on that.
Yeah, if you continually raise your own bar, maybe you've shot a couple 1.5-year-old bucks, start looking at that. Maybe we pass a couple 1.5-year-old bucks and start shooting some 2-year-olds. People around you will see that, especially if you've talked to your neighbors and maybe started talking about coming up with cooperation between the neighbors. If you're leading by example and continue to set goals higher and higher, they will see that, and eventually it will be successful for you. So that's the main thing that you can do. Habitat improvements is another big one on private lands. I'm a big believer in putting land into CRP. The payback as far as the hunting improvement is huge. You also get some financial payback with CRP. Go in and do some timber stand improvement. Those are a few things we've done. Identify areas that deer already want to bed and where you want them to bed to create lines of movement. Another thing you can do, control the doe population. Use trigger control both on not shooting as many young bucks, but also maybe you shoot some more does. There's a lot of lands here in southern Michigan that I don't think we shoot quite enough does. During the rut, the bucks become more huntable. They have to be up on their feet looking for the next hot doe. It does go a long way, and I've actually seen it even with us from year to year. Where the doe population is very high, the buck hunting is much harder. Calling isn't going to be as effective. When you hit a grunt tube, if there's a million hot does and that buck doesn't have to come and check you or check your grunt call, it makes it a lot more difficult to hunt them. So, and even on public lands, if you're seeing too many does, don't be afraid to increase your doe harvest. On public land, it's a lot of the same things. Use trigger control, set realistic goals again. If you've killed a couple nice 1.5-year-old bucks on public land, start shooting for maybe passing some of those 1.5-year-old deer, looking for more the 2.5-year-old bucks. I think continue to push the edge of what is possible in everyone else's eyes, but also continue to push the edge of what's possible in your own eyes. When I started hunting, there's no way that I ever thought that we would be consistently shooting 4.5-year-old deer, in the 130s, 140s, and now starting to touch the 150s. It really blows my mind. We've actually accomplished even more in a short period of time than what I thought was possible. When I first started hunting, if we could see a mid 120s, 3.5-year-old buck, that was a giant deer to me. And I really thought at the time that, man, if we could ever kill a 135-inch buck or kill a 140-inch deer, like that would be the pinnacle of Michigan deer hunting. I really thought that. And now we're consistently, not just us, but also within our co-op, and our neighbors, consistently killing 4.5-year-old deer. And killing that 140, 150 class deer. So
you talked about in the beginning of the co-op that they started in the early 90s and it took about a decade to start catching on. I think in today's society, everybody wants that instant gratification and they want to start seeing results fast. Say you're somebody that's interested in taking your hunting to the next level. Is it going to take 10 years of passing these bucks to start seeing a result, or is it going to be the very next season they're going to have a benefit of having some older deer around?
So I think neighborhood wide, it is going to take a long time, like you said, and it's going to take a while to catch on. But as far as on your personal land, I don't think that it needs to take 10 years, and I don't think that it will take 10 years. If you start raising the bar for yourself, in just 2 or 3 years, you can really improve your hunting. So, pass a couple 1.5-year-old bucks, it will blow your mind how many of those deer hang around and become 2-year-olds. And that's where it really gets exciting, at least for me, is watching these deer year after year after year.
All right, Trevor, I appreciate you having me out here. I had a lot of fun. What are kind of the main takeaways, if we could wrap this whole thing up and put a bow on it? What are the main takeaways for somebody watching this?
So I would say the main takeaways to be successful in a high-pressure state like Michigan would be cooperation. Create cooperation with your neighbors, and it doesn't have to be thousands of acres. You can start with yourself and start with maybe a couple of your closest neighbors that might be on board. Discipline, using trigger control, continue to set the bar higher and higher for yourself and lead by example, and then have patience. Understand that it's not going to happen overnight, but you can make impacts that do happen pretty quickly, just a couple of years. and you'll see a real impact. So the other thing is there's a lot of good free information out there. You know, watch YouTube Hunters, tons of free information out there, and use that. Try those different ideas and things that you see guys trying on your own farm. If you continue to do what you've always done, you're gonna get the results that you've always gotten. So try different things. Even if they fail, you'll learn something from it. And there's a lot of things that I've tried over the years that I've failed at, but I've learned a lot from what doesn't work, just as much as I've learned about what does work. The other thing is always remember to have fun. I think sometimes we get too serious. Even myself at times take deer hunting a little bit too serious, and it also almost makes it unfun. Don't ruin relationships. Don't get angry at your neighbors. Be genuinely happy for your neighbors when they kill a deer. Take your kids out hunting. Be genuinely happy for your kids. So hunting is supposed to be a lot of fun, and I think within the hunting community we all need to uplift each other, and that's how we're going to continue to be successful as a hunting community. So
all right, Eric, mic drop right there. No, hope this was helpful for you guys. Hope you enjoyed watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Dude, you crushed that one take.
There we go.
Was that recording? Is it rolling?
I hope so.
Oh, we good.